Hello, hello. So we are live. Thank you for joining us for another webinar. This one will be focused on security, and we'll be able to talk about Rocket.Chat, about how you can combine security and productivity in a collaboration solution. So first of all, if you're not a subscriber, you can subscribe to our channel to follow up our media. You can follow us on LinkedIn as well. We are also always promoting their content for you about communication, work environment, productivity, and much else. Okay. So I am William, sales executive here in Rocket.Chat. I am responsible for sales. And today we're going to talk about security, as I said, right? So I have a quick presentation to show to you, especially for the ones that don't know Rocket.Chat yet. So Rocket.Chat is a communication hub, right? So we have more than 12 million users. We are open source, so you can check our code, you can see everything behind it. You have a secure environment. We have more than 1,000 developers that help us worldwide, and we are present in more than 150 countries, right? We have more than 800,000 servers deployed. So this means that 800,000 communities, organizations, schools, universities, many different organizations are currently using Rocket.Chat to talk to each other, to promote work remote, and also omnichannel environment, right? So Rocket.Chat is really needed because current communication is broken, right? And we say that because there are many different apps for communication. This means communication internally, so you need to talk to your teammates, to colleague, your boss, but you also need to be on social media and external channels. So this allows you to have a big challenge, right? Because you need to be present in many different channels, and this is really hard for the company to be able to centralize that, right? So this is the main objective of Rocket.Chat, being the communication hub for that, right? So you can see on the left here, for example, that we have social media like WhatsApp, Telegram, Facebook Messenger, Twitter, and you are able to connect all those channels to Rocket.Chat. On the top, you have team collaboration. So if you need to have work remote, so you can have video conferences, you can share audios, files, you can talk really fast with our teammates. This is something that's really needed. And on the right, we have something that we call federation. So you can have instances of Rocket.Chat talking to each other in a complete secure environment with end-to-end encryption and making sure that all this communication is just between you, right? And here on the bottom, you have DevOps and ChatOps. You have many technology, tech solutions that you can integrate with Rocket.Chat to be able to have not only communication, but your legacy systems and market systems integrated with Rocket.Chat to make your life easier. So we always say that Rocket.Chat is not just an app, right? Not just an app that you'll download on your smartphone, but it's really a complete communication solution in which you can build your own integrations, your chatbot solutions. You can actually download many apps from our marketplace. So the idea is that you are going to have just Rocket.Chat in the interface for your customer, for your internal employee, but this communication solution is really powerful because it is connected to those external channels, systems from the market, and legacy system that you have on your organization as well. Okay, and going more deeply on the subject of this webinar, so we have to talk about security, right? So there are many security laws that we need to be compliant, like GDPR, CCPA, HIPAA. We are actually ISO 27001. So these allow us to have a complete secure environment, offering you many features on our self-managed enterprise solution, right? So you can have end-to-end encryption, one of the few communication platforms on the market that offers end-to-end encryption, password encryption, database encryption. You can have different user permission, so you can decide roles and which features or which access each specific role will have inside the Rocket.Chat. LDAP and Active Directory integration, audit panel to be able to have compliance and security, and also two-factor authentication. Okay. And today I have the pleasure of having here on this webinar as well two guests, right? Two people that will join us in this discussion about security and productivity. First one is George from Weir Group. So thank you, George, for joining us.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. We will also have Marcus. So he's the head of security in Rocket.Chat. Thank you.
Hi,
Thank you, Marcus.
Hi, Josh. Thanks for inviting me. Hey, everyone in the call.
Awesome. So my first question is to you, George. I'd like to ask you, why do you think that open source is secure?
Open source is secure. There are a lot of things to say about that. Many times we hear that open source software is more secure. That's not true. Open source is not automatically more secure than a closed source, but we can issue at least two statements for that. It's with open source, with the open source code, you can verify for yourself, meaning also with Rocket.Chat, we can open the source code and see what it does. And if you are not able to do that, you can pay someone to verify for you whether the code is secured, whether the code is securely implemented, whether they use the right libraries, and so on and so forth. With closed source programs, you will need to take faith that the piece of code works properly, because you have to trust the programmers that are closing the source. As a consequence, anyone who makes a general statement like open source software is more secure is wrong. This is wrong to say it's more secure. The statement should be open source software can be audited and fixed when its behavior or security is in doubt. That means that you can always, if you have a question, and that many CISOs, many security officers do love to be able to look at what exactly the code does when it is executed. From the security point of view, generally, commercial software and open source software both provide common capabilities as a commodity to a lot of competitors in the market. The open source software distinguished in at least two important ways. The open source software does have the potential to be more secure, really, but it's a potential. But please do not make the mistake. Simply being open source is not a guarantee of security. And you can have also weird code that is running, it's open source, but it does not mean that it is secure. And having the source code and having access to the source code, it enables an open source software user to create a derivative work. For example, you have a need, you take the open source code and you can modify that to that it behaves in the way you want to. That's mainly the things that we can say about the security in open source. Open source is not by design more secure. It gives you the ability of looking at what it does and be sure that what it does is exactly what you want.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Yeah, I think you mentioned a really interesting thing, right? So just being open source doesn't means that it's going to be secure. Doesn't mean that it's going to protect all your data, your information. So we really need to have a powerful tool that allows you to have features like end-to-end encryption, LDAP integration, Active Directory integration, so we can have the environment really secure, right? And now I'd like to ask some question about for Marcus. And Marcus, how about you? Do you agree with George?
Yeah, I really liked George's very nuanced answer, speaking here from inside Rocket.Chat, from, let's say, from a team that really is developing the platform and works with open source code every day. George is absolutely right, saying security doesn't come by itself, so it's not magic where we suddenly make the code public and it's secure. No, it's really tough work, and we are working with the community. We are working inside of our teams to really leverage the possibilities that open source gives us. But of course, we have to do the work, right? So it's not something that comes by itself. But just speaking, let's say some examples. So Rocketjet, all of our code, for example, is on GitHub. So we use all the options that GitHub gives us as a platform, meaning open pull requests that everyone can see. All the releases go via GitHub. We use the, let's say, vulnerability checkers for, let's say, some dependencies that we use, so that also these dependencies, which is a big part of open source, let's say third-party code that you integrate into your platform, that these get updated. So yeah, it's really a big piece of work. But as George mentioned, the possibility for us and for others to have a look at the code, making suggestions how to improve it, and also holding us accountable is really what lets us leverage the benefits of open source to make Rocketjet more secure.
Yeah, totally right. And that's why we can move so fast regarding security, because we have more than 1,000 developers checking every day our code and giving us tips, giving us examples of what we could improve on our codes to make it better and more secure, right? And Marcus, since you are the head of security in Rocket.Chat, I'm really sure that you see every day some cases, right? So what are the common pitfalls where security breaks productivity?
Right, that is also a common issue. Usually, this problem scales with the size of an organization where you use a tool, because the larger an organization, the more people let's say, are involved in your organization, the more, let's say, requirements you have to fulfill, and security is there, let's say, to secure the operations, to keep the company going. So usually comes with some restrictions. So there's always kind of the two sides of the coin. Not making security too restrictive to let the members of the organization do their thing, but also is how to secure the organization from, let's say, rogue members of the organizations or from employees making mistakes. This is it's a balance that the organization has to achieve. But let's say common pitfalls, speaking of some examples that we also see when clients come to us, customers come to us when they want improvements, as Rocketjet, for example. Usually a common pitfall is user management, where you have, let's say, organizations of every size trying to onboard the new users, trying to, let's say, change the roles when they change in the organizations, but also to deactivate the users. If you have a large IT landscape, you really want to centralize that process, which is not so easy, because your tools have to support mechanisms like federation or other ways of a centralized user management. Other things are, I would say, for example, many teams and organizations, they use different tools to communicate. You had the slide at the beginning where the communication is broken in silos. And let's say there is a supplier portal where the company speaks with suppliers. There's an internal communications tool. There is a social media app. There is a tool to communicate with your customers on your website. All of this creates friction and has to be managed on some part from your IT. And this, of course, makes processes slow and therefore can break your productivity. And another important thing with a lot of services going into the cloud, you're very dependent on your service provider. So if your service provider is slow, if you want him to do something, of course that can break your productivity. Or if the provider you're looking for doesn't provide a feature you're looking for, how do you deal with that loss of feature in an environment where you're dependent on your service provider? So it's kind of a balance, but these are things that we commonly see and which we are trying to solve with Rocketjet.
That's awesome. Great. Yeah. And what security technologies does Rocketjet provide to boost this productivity?
Right. So maybe taking up the ball from the last points that I mentioned, especially user management, I think is a thing where Rocketjet is pretty strong. So we support all of these standard authentication protocols. We support OAuth, SAML, LDAP, meaning you can have your central identity store somewhere outside of Rocketjet, and you can take these identities and authenticate your users then in Rocketjet using your central identity store, and that's usually a big advantage for organizations of every size. You only have one place where you centralize and manage your users, and take these digital identities in your different tools. And Rocketjet supports that, as I mentioned, SAML, LDAP, OAuth. We also have let's say, native users inside of Rocketjet, but let's say depending on how you want to scale, you probably want to use some of these authentication protocols. Also, what I would think is important for productivity. If you want to centralize your communication in a single tool like Rocketjet, you also maybe want to move away a bit from having, let's say, one admin control everything, but giving or delegating roles with responsibilities to individual users with a bit more responsibility. And we have a very granular permission system where you can do that. We have, let's say, a channel-based organization within Rocketjet with a tool, and you can give moderator permissions, you can give all kinds of permissions, you can give kind of power admins, and you can give sub admins that do a bit less stuff but with a bit less permissions. But still, you can use the permission system in Rocketjet to really tailor it to your organization, not having everything dependent on one or two persons, but really, let's say, flushing it out in the organization and having more people getting them involved. And talking about productivity in general, you mentioned the silos that we want to break with Rocketjet, communication silos, things like Omnichannel, which is a big part where we are trying to collect all of the communication channels where you communicate with your customer in one place. Of course, that's a big productivity boost because you only have to look at one place to find all of the communication that you have with your customers instead of looking in 10 different tools, for example.
Yeah. And you mentioned before about federation, right? I see federation has a big potential, and I'm really sure that companies are going to use it more and more to connect different environments. But I think it's still a question to some people, what is federation? And so I'm going to ask you this question so we can maybe explain to our viewers what is federation and how you think that this feature can also improve productivity in those organizations.
Right. So federation, imagine you would deploy now an instance of Rocketjet, and you would put your organization's users in there and they can communicate, and then you have an internal communication tool. But now you have let's say, maybe a supplier, a customer, or someone else outside of the organization you want to communicate with. Now you can invite him into your Rocketjet workspace, or what Federation does is you can connect your server, your Rocketjet workspace, to that other workspace, and can then create, let's say, common communication channels, kind of a bridge between these two Rocketjet servers, and of course more servers. And of course, this increases your communication reach and therefore also your productivity. And as, let's say, coming back to our organizational goals, we really want to replace email, for example, which right now is the ubiquitous communication tool. But if you can, let's say, extend your reach with Rocketjet, if you can connect it with other people using Rocketjet, make it kind of a universal communication platform, that's a big productivity boost. You don't need to switch tools. You can stay inside the environment that you're familiar with. And that's basically what Federation is. So we see it as a big productivity boost, and we also want to offer the same security features that you have in your workspace, also when you extend your communication reach to other servers.
Yeah, and one of the big benefits that you can have from using Rocketjet is freedom, right? So we can offer freedom of integration and freedom of hosting, right? So the first thing you can do is you can choose if you want to host your server in the self-managed way, self-hosted, so you can use your local server if you have an organization, or you can use your own cloud in your provider of your preference, or you can also use the cloud of Rocketjet, right? And when you talk about cloud from Rocketjet, we have also, for example, different locations for the server. So we have in US, we have in Europe, so you can have this cloud server even on Rocketjet side, and it is GDPR compliant, right? So you can have the data control is really important. The data that you are exchanging, the messages, the files that you are exchanging inside of this Rocketjet server is yours, right? So you can delete it afterwards if you want. And you have the complete control of your data and all the information that you are exchanging in Rocketjet, right? And I have another question for you, Marcus. So why has Europe evolved a stricter level of data control than the rest of the world? What are the implications on that?
Right. That's an interesting phenomenon. Me myself, being from Europe, growing up there, it's kind of I would say it's kind of an historically has evolved there pretty much. Kind of maybe seems to be kind of it has entered legislation. It has become kind of an important value, privacy, which we see growing as an important factor in all over the world. But I think Europe was maybe historically first in passing a lot of these laws to control your own data, which is a growing movement these days. You don't want, let's say, you use hundreds of services probably if you navigate the internet a lot, like me, for example. So you have these hundreds of services. Every company has some parts of your data, and how can you, let's say, follow what happens with that data? How can you control what happens with that data? Has become increasingly difficult by using all these services. So putting people back into control of their own data is, I would say, today not just a European thing anymore. It's really global. We see it in all places of the world, and it's really personally I welcome it a lot because I can use, let's say, my rights to make sure that my data is not misused. And speaking of the implications that this has for Rocketjet is of course, we are monitoring these trends, and it's also part of our mission to really put organizations, but also individual users back into control of their data. So meaning you can choose as an organization, as the admin of Rocketjet, first of all, where are you putting your workspace? We are one of the few in the market where you can really host it on your own server. You don't have to go in a serviced environment. You can keep it on your own server, and you can even use your Rocketjet air-gapped, meaning without any internet connection in your private network. And this really puts organizations back into control of their data and ultimately protecting users as well, I think.
That's great. Mm-hmm. And how does Rocketjet support GDPR compliance?
Right. So GDPR, we have spent quite a lot of effort on making Rocketjet GDPR ready. Our philosophy in this is we as Rocketjet, we provide a platform which people and ultimately then administrators can use to provide, let's say, a communication platform to the users. And we want to help the admins and the users to, let's say, establish processes for GDPR compliance. So in terms of speaking with the law, we are, let's say, helping organizations to comply with GDPR. And what we're doing, we're building on different features into Rocket.Chat to make it easy to implement these processes. I think one of the most notable things what we're doing is we have a quick feature where every user can export their own data in a it's called machine readable format and take that data to somewhere else they want to go. So it's very easy. It's just a mouse click. The admin can control it. If the user himself can do it as a self-service, or if the admin does it kind of as a second step in the process. So there's a lot of flexibility involved in using these features. But ultimately, we are providing the features, and admins can configure their processes around these features that we provide to help them as the responsibles managing a Rocket.Chat workspace to get GDPR compliant. And the law itself is pretty broad. A lot of things are demanded. I won't go into all of the details, just mentioning the features are in there. The features are in Rocket.Chat. And as the law, as also demand is evolving from the community, we're adding new things over time as well, of course. So that's our philosophy in that part.
Yeah, of course. And what is digital sovereignty, and why is Rocket.Chat uniquely positioned to support this trend?
Right. Digital sovereignty is, I personally heard it, let's say, just a few years ago, the first time. I would describe it as being, I mean, if you look in the news today, you see, or if you browse the internet, you see a lot of the digital infrastructure is controlled by by a few large corporations that collect a lot of data. And let's say these are private organizations. But of course, you also have public organizations, states that need to manage data or their IT infrastructure to govern, to govern a state, to govern a city, for example. And right now, these public bodies are very dependent on these private companies to provide the solutions to put the data in their trust. But of course, it would be better if the public body, if the state could be, let's say, the sovereign of their own data or the data of their citizens. So this is a growing movement where states are trying to get away from, let's say, these large corporations and try to establish something like, like their own solutions, open source usually. So open source is a big pillar of their strategies usually, but usually to escape from the dependence of large private corporations. And we as Rocket.Chat, of course, we want to help there. I think we are uniquely positioned to help. Meaning our platform is open source, so there are no backdoors. And you can also run Rocket.Chat, for example, self-managed, so also no dependency on a private data center provider, for example. So you can use Rocket.Chat really as one keystone for communication, as a communication platform in your effort for digital sovereignty as one part. So we have contacts with public bodies, with universities, in the education sector, in the healthcare sector, where really we see a growing trend to move away from all of these full service, let's say, deployments where everything is in control of, let's say, one of the big IT corporations, but rather these bodies are seeking for a way to take control back of their own data, and this is how Rocket.Chat helps them by serving as an open source and self-managed communication platform they can use.
Okay. George, I believe you have an image to show to us right now, and I'd like to ask you, what are your opinion about this subject that we are talking about?
It's absolutely central. By us, we got customers. We got two big customers that we are in the process of implementing the whole thing with them, because they were, exactly as Marcus said, they were very concerned by where the data go, etc., etc. With GDPR, one of the biggest thing is not only that are rules, but that's also a framework to ensure that everything is fully auditable. It is not only that you can get your data back, but you can also ask what the hell they do with your data. So and that's the auditability. So we got, for example, we got an insurance company, a large Swiss insurance company, and a large Swiss banking institution that is using Rocket.Chat right now. They are implementing the whole thing so that they can validate a lot of things in terms of security and things. They both use Rocket.Chat to automate the PKI request, or for example, because they have implemented their own PKI, and they want to have certificate signs and things like this. So you can automate that with having Rocket.Chat in the middle that is securely sends the requests and also receive them, and you can then after that automate also that they implement where they're needed. So that's really powerful to have those things. Obviously, we have to code a couple of things, code a little bots and things like that. But it's not so difficult to do, and the integration is very full. All those companies had, as Marcus said, their own instant messaging solutions or things, but no one was delivering the security and automation level that Rocket.Chat can provide. Also. And last but not least, that was also the users. Users, by those kind of things, users are keys, because if they do not adopt the solution, they will not use it, and you have got a project that ends with nothing. And with the fact that Rocket.Chat behaves exactly like all other instant messaging things, they are not lost. So they are used to use they are in WhatsApp or Telegram or whatever, and they are used to have all those messages that come to answer, to give things, or to insert even GIFs, animated GIFs, and so on and so forth. So if you present a lot of features that you can do with Rocket.Chat with bots, so that you can send commands so that it execute what you need, it's really powerful, and it's completely adopted, because they can even have it on their smartphone. So it's really easy for them. Security manager are also seduced by the solution, given the fact that we can install all those servers on-prem. That means that they have full control of what it does, what they want it to do, and so on and so forth. That means that it does not have to communicate with anything anywhere in the world. That's a pretty good thing. My last example was about talking about all those technologies, that open source technology, is by us, Barbier Group. We run 2 data centers, tier 4 data centers. We are ISO 27001-13, and I don't remember all the certification we got about those things. We are also Gdpr compliant, because we have to, because we provide cloud solutions to our customers. And if you can see on the slide, right, that is displayed right now, that we have Rocket.Chat in the middle of the management part of our data centers. You got on the right, you got all that you don't do, hypervisors, storages, backup, load balancers, and whatever, and OSs on back. But the management is done with a couple of things. We got our data center are software defined, fully software defined, that we have all the code in GitLab, and when we make changes, we just push them into a pipeline. Rocket.Chat receives that and sends the right messages to the right person that can acknowledge or cancel an action or a change, and we can go further forward. The same things automatically with a couple of tools that we have here with Prometheus and Grafana, which are the monitoring tools that we are using. they connect to alert manager that can send messages everywhere. We used Rocket.Chat as the hub to have the messages, the alerts be, and depending on the severity of the alert, they can also be sent to any other platform like WhatsApp, Telegram, or whatever, so that our engineers can act very rapidly if we've got a problem. That's basically what I wanted to add to what Marcus was saying.
That's awesome. Thank you, George.
You're welcome.
So we are already in 34 minutes. I'd like to ask for our viewers to send us questions. We're going to answer them on the end. So any question, no problem, just let us know and we'll try to explain to you. But first, before talking about the questions, I'd like to talk about some use cases, right? So George itself helped us to implement in 2 major banks, right? We can't say the name because of security, but 2 major banks in Swiss. We have also the biggest bank in Brazil, the 3rd biggest bank in Latin America, using Rocket.Chat at this moment. So financial and banking is the customer case that most demands security requirements, law of privacy. So we are really happy to be able to offer this such a great solution, right? And talking about security and also using this example of this bank in Latin America, we have to talk about Omnichannel, right? So Omnichannel, it's a really interesting usage of Rocket.Chat. For the ones that don't know what Omnichannel is connecting Rocket.Chat to external channels like WhatsApp, Telegram, Facebook. So your customers will be there on those channels talking to you, but your internal employees, your customer service agents, your sales executives will be inside of Rocket.Chat, right? So this is something that is really important. And I want to ask you, Marcus, how Rocket.Chat ensures security through its omnichannel features?
Right. To make the answer short, omnichannel, it's how to say, it's not a completely different product or something. It's more like, behaves more like an extension of Rocket.Chat. So it helps you to collect the different conversations with your customers. But in the let's say what happens at the back is it uses the same components from the Rocket.Chat platform to treat the messages that it receives and sends. So let's say you can use the same security features that you use within the Rocket.Chat platform, also leverage them within the Omnichannel feature. But of course, we have some additions there, mostly, let's say, for productivity reasons. You can have business hours, you can have agent queues, and so on and so forth, and some additional, let's say, settings that come with the unique nature of Omnichannel. For example, you can choose if you want to enable iframe integration or not. So if you want to place the Omnichannel on a different domain, then you should maybe enable iframes. Or if you don't want to do that, some people don't want to do it because they need to trust in the other domain that they deactivate it. That's part of our philosophy to offer options, and but basically to let's say to explain the nature of the security of Omnichannel, it's an extension, use the same components in the back that the Rocket.Chat platform uses. And therefore, once you get the communication content into your Omnichannel, you can use, let's say, the same security features that come with Rocket.Chat.
That's awesome. Thank you, Marcus. So now we are close to the end. Let's open for questions. Once again, send more questions if you want. So the first question, it is, how do you protect against data leaking of sensitive data if you're using Federation? I think this question is for you, Marcus.
I'll try to answer that one. That's a thing. Rocket.Chat, to explain, we are not a fully fledged DLP solution. So we don't manage so much the underlying file system. Usually, what organizations do, they connect Rocket.Chat with a file system, a file grid or something like this, and then the file system, the underlying file system, does the authentication part. So usually, what just to define the scope of what Rocket.Chat does, we're not coming as a fully fledged DLP solution. Usually, you want to do, let's say, the access control, the authentication on let's say the files itself that you want to exchange with the file system that you're using. Talking about content, content you can manage just the same as with a normal Rocket.Chat workspace. You have a channel, you can invite users, you can remove users, you can moderate that channel. That happens the same in the federation as well.
That's awesome. We have another question. So what are you doing in terms of SVG picture security? Would it be blocked by default, sending and receiving SVGs? Or are you planning a form of security to audit the SVGs files?
To answer that one, so we're not planning to audit the SVG files, because we would this would be kind of working as a service where we have to continually update, let's say, the recognition patterns to look for malicious parts in SVGs. What we provide is we provide in the admin settings a way where you can block files, certain file types by default. This year we made this more granular, so you can also block off SVG. And if I remember correct, I'm not sure, but I'm not sure if it's blocked off by default for new installations. We had some discussions about this, because usually what always is, our philosophy is usually to give the admin freedom. So I'm not sure if it's blocked out for new installations, but definitely you can adjust this in the settings for the uploaded file types that you want to allow. If you want to have them out, just block the SVG file types, or if you want to allow them, just let them come in. It depends on your use case, for example. So, but the possibility to block them by default is in Rocket.Chat, just added in the admin settings.
I would like to perhaps add something to what you said, Marcus.
Yeah.
That basically all those deployments must be frameworked by rules that are defined by the security officers in the companies where we are going to implement that. We do not have to think about Rocket.Chat being the security officer of the whole things and say and be able to cover all the problems that will rise with security. Many times, as you said, it's a filer. The filer does already have access to things, and so give access to the user and so on and so forth. Exactly the same way. When you need to have, you can have devices that are filtering the channels and so on and so forth. So it's part of the whole thing. It will never harm something that is implemented, Rocket.Chat meaning, but it's not the only tool that we have to secure this communication. There are a lot of other things that can be added to that, and it's mainly, and what we see about with our customers is that it's part of larger projects that are aimed to secure the whole communication, the whole data leaking, and so on and so forth.
Okay. Let's see if I have one last question. Okay, last question. How is Federation protected from abuse from external servers, or can you only remove the specific remote server? It's really related to the first one, but is there anything else, Marco, that you would like to add?
I would say, well, abuse is a pretty broad term in terms of what malicious things the external server could do. In general, let's say you can remove, of course, the server, but also things like let's say your rate limiter, for example, would apply to connections you receive from the other server. So if you're getting bombed or bombarded with messages from that rogue server, for example, the rate limiter would kick in, giving you an alarm, blocking any messages above that threshold, and then you can take action and remove that server. But maybe this is an interesting question. I would give back to our community to tell us what kind of cases of abuse they could see from the federation feature, and we, of course, we would take that input and incorporate it, because federation is something we're developing right now. We're extending it. We're adding new capabilities to it, and I think this let us know what kind of cases come to your mind. Write in our forums, contact us on our open server. I think this is something where we also would like to see some input from the community. Which problems do you see come up, and then we can include it in the development process. So right now the answer is there are some basic ways. Let's say the control mechanisms from your Rocketjet instance would kick in, but let's say maybe there are some more exotic cases of abuse or malicious behavior which we have not yet thought about. So let us know and help us find solutions for these problems as well.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Marcus, for answering that. George, do you have any last comments to talk about this webinar of security and productivity?
Not really. It's again, I wanted to emphasize that it's Rocketjet does not have to be somewhere taken out of the shelf and then just put in. It's always part of something that's larger. And the thing is that Rocketjet allows to answer to almost any kind of security issue.
Awesome. And Marcus, one last comment from you?
Just want to say thanks to Josh for joining and his excellent contributions. I think his stance on open source security, I really liked it. Being this nuanced part, I can confirm it from the inside of Rocketjet. It's really a continuous work that we're doing here to keep the platform secure for all of our users. And yeah, we're going to keep up the work. And yeah, want to thank the good webinar.
That's awesome. Thank you, George, and thank you, Marcus, for joining us today. We are going to reach out to everyone that subscribed to this webinar to thank you guys for joining us. If you have additional questions, you can just reply to our email, and we'll make sure that we can help you. Or if you want, you can also leave your email in the comments, and we will also send an email if you're not subscribed yet, okay? That's it, guys. Thank you a lot, and see you next time.
See you next time.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.